72% of American households own no backup power equipment of any kind. Not a generator, not a battery, not even a reliable supply of candles. That is not a fringe statistic from a preparedness blog. That is from the 2023 FEMA National Household Survey on Emergency Preparedness, the same agency responsible for coordinating the federal response when the grid fails across a region. I read that number and immediately started counting the things in my own house that would stop working, not at hour 48, but at hour 4. The list was longer than I expected. Here is the complete timeline, and here is the $40 system that changes it. The grid has failed before, it will fail again. I am not going to speculate about causes because the cause does not change what happens inside your house. What changes what happens inside your house is whether you understand the sequence and whether you have prepared for the first 48 hours specifically. Most preparedness advice skips directly to long-term scenarios. Water storage for 90 days. Seed banks. Communication networks. All of it is genuinely useful. None of it addresses what happens between hour 0 and hour 48, which is when the majority of grid failures resolve in documented events, and also when the majority of household emergencies occur in extended events. The first 48 hours are the most dangerous and the least planned for. This video is about that window exclusively. Before I give you the timeline, I want to give you the historical context that makes it make sense. The modern power grid is an engineering achievement that most people interact with, but almost nobody has studied. It was not always this tightly integrated. Farm families across rural Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the Dakotas lived without grid power until the Rural Electrification Act of 1936, and many communities remained off-grid through the early 1950s. The knowledge of how a household functions without grid power was practical and common among those communities. Cooling food without refrigeration, pumping water without electric pumps, communicating without powered networks. That knowledge did not disappear, it was documented, and it is available. The 48-hour timeline I am about to describe is drawn from post-event analysis published by FEMA after Hurricane Maria in 2017. The Texas grid failure of February 2021, and the Pacific Northwest heat dome event of 2021. These are documented, studied events with published timelines. I am not inventing a scenario. I am reading you the record of what actually happened. The science that underlies this timeline is infrastructure dependency. Modern household systems are not independent. They depend on each other in a cascade. Understanding that cascade is what allows you to interrupt it at the right points with the right interventions. Think of your household infrastructure like a set of dominoes standing in a line. When the first one falls, the sequence is predictable. Knowing the sequence lets you put your hand down between specific dominoes and stop the cascade before it reaches the ones that matter most to your family. Here is the part that gets me every time I review these post-event reports. The sequence is almost identical across every documented multi-day grid failure, regardless of cause. The specific hours vary by geography, season, and infrastructure age, but the order of failures is consistent enough that you can plan against it with high confidence. Hour 0. The grid fails. Lights out. Everything running on standard household current stops. Battery-powered devices continue on whatever charge they currently hold. Hour 1. Your refrigerator temperature begins rising. At standard room temperature, a full refrigerator maintains safe food temperatures for approximately 4 hours without power if the door stays closed. A half-full refrigerator maintains safe temperatures for approximately 2 hours. An empty refrigerator has almost no thermal mass and begins warming toward room temperature almost immediately. Hour 4. Refrigerator temperatures in a half-empty unit have crossed 40 degrees Fahrenheit, the FDA threshold above which bacterial growth in perishable foods accelerates to dangerous levels. Most households are not full. The 4-hour window for food safety has closed for a significant portion of your perishables. Here is where most people make the critical planning error. They focus on hour 4 because that is the first visible, tangible problem. The refrigerator, the food, the ice run to the store. But while they are focused on the refrigerator, the more consequential infrastructure failures are quietly beginning in the background, on a timeline most people have never considered. Hour 8. In most municipal water systems, distribution pressure is maintained by electric pumps at pumping stations and elevated storage tanks. If the grid failure is localized to your neighborhood, the broader water system continues to function normally. If the grid failure is regional, covering multiple substations or an entire metropolitan area, electric pumping capacity drops and municipal water systems begin drawing down their elevated storage reserves. The timeline to water pressure loss at the tap depends on your specific municipality's storage capacity, but FEMA's post-event data from regional failures shows municipal water pressure dropping or failing entirely between 8 and 20 hours after a regional grid event begins. Hour 12. Cellular towers run on battery backup systems that are typically sized for 4 to 8 hours of normal traffic load. During a grid failure, traffic load spikes dramatically as everyone simultaneously attempts to make calls, send messages, and access information. The combination of higher than normal traffic and battery-only operation exhausts cellular tower backup capacity faster than the rated specifications suggest. Post-event analysis from the 2021 Texas grid failure found cellular service degraded severely in heavily affected areas between 10 and 16 hours after grid failure began, with some towers going completely dark before the 24-hour mark. Hour 24. If the failure extends to this point, you are now in a situation where most households have no lights, degraded or no water pressure, limited or no cellular service, and rapidly diminishing phone battery capacity because charging has been impossible since hour 0. This is the point at which the $40 system I am going to describe becomes the difference between a manageable situation and a genuinely dangerous one. Here is what the $40 system contains, and I want to be honest with you. This is genuinely it. You need a 20,000 mAh power bank. A quality unit with pass-through charging capability costs between $18 and $25. This is your phone charging and communications backbone for the entire 48-hour window. You need a 12V car battery jump starter with a USB output port. Compact units cost between $15 and $22 and provide enough capacity to charge a phone 8 to 10 times while also functioning as a jump starter. You need a hand-crank emergency radio with a weatherband receiver and a built-in LED flashlight. Units with USB charging output cost between $12 and $18 and operate indefinitely without batteries. You need a small digital thermometer to monitor refrigerator and freezer temperature without opening the doors, about $6 to $8. Total system cost, approximately $38 to $40, assembled once and stored ready. Everything in this system is linked in the description below and in the first pinned comment with Amazon links, so you can assemble it in a single order. Hour 24 through hour 36 is the window in which most households in documented grid failures begin making decisions under stress that they would not make under normal conditions. Driving unnecessarily on roads where traffic signals are dark. Opening the refrigerator repeatedly to assess food that they cannot safely consume. Using candles in proximity to flammable materials. The $40 system addresses each of these decision points directly. The power bank keeps the phone charged, which keeps navigation and communication functional. The hand crank radio provides weather and official information without depending on cellular. The thermometer tells you your refrigerator temperature without opening the door. Hour 36. In extended events, grocery stores with generator backup have typically sold out of ice, water, bread, and shelf-stable foods within the first 24 hours. If you have not prepared before this point, the options available to you have narrowed considerably. Hour 48. This is the resolution point for approximately 60% of major grid failures in the historical record. If your event resolves here, the $40 system carried you through the entire dangerous window. If it extends beyond 48 hours, the system continues to function, and the knowledge of the timeline you now have allows you to make better decisions at each subsequent hour than you would have made without it. When you are ready to take this from a $40 emergency kit to a complete household resilience system that can sustain your family through an extended event, the Energy Revolution system maps out exactly that build. You will see a QR code in the bottom right corner of your screen right now. Point your phone camera at it, and it will take you directly there. It covers the complete architecture of household power, water, and communications independence beyond the 48-hour window. This is not really about fear. It is about the specific calm that comes from understanding a sequence and having a plan for each step of it. About being the household on your street that handles a 3-day outage without a crisis because you spent $40 and 2 hours thinking clearly before the event rather than under it. What every post-event study confirms is that the households that fare best in extended grid failures are not the ones with the most elaborate preparation. They are the ones who clearly understood the first 48 hours and had a simple functional plan for that specific window. You now understand the timeline. The system costs $40. The only remaining question is whether you assemble it before you need it or after. And if this 48-hour timeline changed the way you think about what your house actually depends on, the energy revolution system goes much further into building household independence than this single video can cover. The QR code is still visible in the bottom right corner of your screen. It will take you there directly when you are ready. I do not want you to spend $400 on a generator this weekend before you have the $40 foundation in place. Start with the power bank, the jump starter, and the hand crank radio. Those 3 items address the 3 most common failure points in the first 48 hours. If you already have all 3, you are ahead of 72% of American households. That is not a small thing. If this timeline changed the way you look at the next power outage, please subscribe and like the channel. We are unearthing practical wisdom that the modern world has tried to bury. Prepare for the hours that matter most. The next treasure of forgotten knowledge will be revealed soon.